Loki finds himself out of time and in an unusual place. Hello, everybody. I'm Steve from VALHARTV, and today I'll be reviewing Loki Episode 1 Glorious Purpose. So, we start out back in 2012, and we see Loki escape from the Avengers in Endgame. So the whole Endgame scene where Loki grabs the Tesseract off the floor and uses it to escape, we get to see a recap of that, basically. And he lands in the Gobi Desert in Mongolia. And it's all green screen, and you can tell. So that was, I was a little disappointed at, because like the whole background, things like that, you could tell it was a green screen, and then they, made some of the desert in the studio. And he tries to tell these people that are just camped out in the desert, there's not even an oasis around them either, that he's there to take over, when some soldiers from a doorway appear. Like, a doorway appears, and these soldiers come out, and they find the Tesseract and don't even know what it is, and they find Loki. So they go and capture Loki, and we later on find out that it's called the Time Variance Authority. And Loki, at first is like, don't touch that, that's powerful and all this, when they grab the Tesseract, and it was great. What they do to Loki in this when they capture him was great. Honestly, I liked it. But some of the jokes in this, I felt like they didn't hit at all. But we'll get into that later. So Loki is taken to the TVA. And this whole thing reminded me of Fallout. Literally, when I watched it, the Fallout has the 50s theme to it. But it's like advanced as well. You got robots that, literally take care of the babies, your lawn, things like that, Mr. Handy and all that. And it really reminded me of Fallout. Like, everything that happens to Loki in the TVA as he's going through, like, processing all of that. But this is more set in, like, a 60s to 70s style. So I did like that, but yeah, this whole thing reminded me of Fallout. I mean, even after Loki gets processed, I mean, he's literally got to sign a bunch of paperwork that states that this is everything he's ever said. And he's like, what? He's like, and he keeps talking, so the guy's like, and sign this, and sign this, and sign, and so Loki finally shuts up and signs it, and he's like super annoyed. And as we're going through, he keeps dropping down these doors. The floor opens up, boom, boom, and he goes through. And then he watches then he grabs a ticket, right? And then he has to go through this line. And in the picture here is like somebody, I mean, I can't remember what her name is, but it's basically Cappy from Fallout. She has animated like a cartoon video where she goes in and talks about the sacred timeline and tells them about it. So we really find out that variants leave the sacred timeline path and that they have to be put back where they belong because they're not supposed to deviate from that. And with time travel and things like that, there's always going to be some kind of like a plot hole, things like that. And in this, even Loki points out that a lot of this doesn't make any sense. And as you're thinking about it, it really doesn't either. But it's still a really cool concept. And we go back to 1549, and we see a few TVA soldiers along with an agent looking at a whole bunch of dead bodies, and they talk about knife wounds and how they're consistent with other attacks and how he's responsible for this. So we're basically figuring out who it is. And the agent's name is Mobius, who I don't really know a lot about the comics for this part. So unfortunately, I'm not really sure what his his part in all of that is, along with some of the other characters in this. But I'm sure we'll end up finding out. But we basically end up knowing who the person is that's attacking the TVA. And when we meet Agent Mobius, he's handed a file and he runs back through a door to Loki's trial. So Loki goes up in front of a judge, and she's like, how do you plead? And he's like, well, what about the Avengers? They went in time and changed stuff, and they were like, oh, that was supposed to happen. And he's like, wait, what? That doesn't make any sense. Why I can't leave it then? Because if that was supposed to happen, I was supposed to pick up the Tesseract and take off, and escape. And they're like, no, you weren't, though. And it's like, what? And he's like, yeah, it doesn't make any sense. So he's going through, and then Mobius saves him from getting from getting placed back into the timeline where he belongs, because they need his help. And the judge's name is Ravana as well. So we really get to see her in this, and she's another major character in the comics as well, from what I've been able to read. And the ideas around the TVA are good, but again, you run into problems when you actually stop to think about it. And at the end, and as Mobius and Loki are talking, he takes them kind of on a tour. And we get to see this awesome looking shot of the TVA. It's like a giant city. Opens right up, and Loki's like, I thought you said there was no magic here. And Mobius is like, oh, there isn't any magic. And Loki's just like, wait, what? But again, like in Thor and stuff, they talk about how magic is just science that they haven't figured out yet. So I thought that shot was awesome, and we see Loki's just floored by it. And at the end of the show, again, we get the reveal of who the dangerous variant is that Mobius wants Loki to help him find. But throughout this whole thing is sprinkled like Loki escapes at one point, and then he runs into a guy where he talks about gutting him like a fish, but the joke doesn't really land very well. Then he sees a drawer full of stuff in it that he's just like, wait, what? And he can't understand and believe it. And the guy's like, oh yeah, some of the guys here use these, stuff as paperweights. And Loki's like, what the heck is going on here? So we see the wheels start to turn in Loki's head, because Loki's always looking for more power. Now again, the effects in this were pretty good. You can tell some of the shots were green screen, which is fine, because there's just, especially when you get into certain things, like the city, TVA city, it's too big, and sometimes you can't make it look perfect, obviously. But still, I thought the graphics were pretty awesome in this. And Owen Wilson plays Mobius in this, and he's really good. And I actually do like where we get this really cool scene of Loki being, who is it? B.B. Cooper, I believe it is. And I thought that was cool, but at the same time, I was like, wait, he lost a bet? I was like, okay, that's crazy. So I had mixed feelings about that, but I still thought it was pretty cool. And yeah, Mobius literally breaks down Loki in this. And it's all about, especially when they're sitting and talking together, he's just trying to get in his head, and he starts showing Loki his life. And Loki is just finally broken down by Mobius, and we see that he's going to agree to help the TVA out to find this dangerous variant that we find out who it is anyways at the end of the episode. So I kind of was like, if they could have made it a little more of a mystery, it might have been cool, like cooler. But overall, the aesthetics and the ideas are certainly intriguing, and they play into the idea of time travel in this versus, like we only saw time travel in Endgame. That's it. We didn't see time travel at any other point in any of the movies. And this episode was literally all about breaking down Loki. That's really what it was all about. Because they want him to help them catch him, basically. So we're finding out that there are variants for everything that they do when they reset the timelines. Or I should say the sacred timeline, from people deviating from it. So overall, I did like this episode. Again, there were some plot holes because of the time travel, things like that. Excuse me. That they even point out in the show, like Loki does. But still, I would give this a 7.5, 8 out of 10 easily. This was a good opening episode. So if you guys like what I do, please hit the like button and subscribe. And take care for now.